Welcome to the Elliott High Network. I'm your host, Taylor Brooks. The Washington Teachers Union has launched a major initiative called Learning Doesn't Stop Lessons on TV. Let's check out Ms. Lindsay Hall. Ms. Hall will discuss visual literacy. In Lesson 2, Mr. Stewart will highlight the importance of understanding your finances. Let's see what we can learn today. Take it away, librarian.
My name is Lindsay Hall, and I'm a librarian with DCPS. Today, we're going to be talking about visual literacy.
So we're going to talk about visual literacy, review a process to help complete a portion of the DC history packet for weeks 4 through 5 for 11th and 12th grade, and point out how you can explore more on your own. Visual literacy is used in many fields and as a result has many definitions, but from the perspective of the library, visual literacy is basically the ability to construct meaning from images. Think of it as reading images in the way we might read a book. Like authors, artists use images to make an argument, to evoke an emotion, or to convey facts about people, events, data, or maybe even literary themes, things that shape society and us as individuals. A visually literate person is able to identify an image, step back, and critically think about that image. Maybe ask some questions like, what am I looking at? Where is it? What is the story behind this image? And then use that information to draw a conclusion. Understanding and communicating with images is a valuable 21st century skill. Fortunately, we practice communicating with images every day. We gather information from maps, logos, signs in the neighborhood, scientific illustrations, social science data, even memes we share with friends to convey emotion. Visual literacy is relevant to historical photos, to fine art, manga, to book design and advertisements. Being visually literate is important in the 21st century media environment, to be able to find images we need, to interpret them, to use them responsibly, and even to create them ourselves. If you want to take a look at a creative combination of data and storytelling, I suggest you check out Super Graphic by Tim Leong from DC Public Library. It's even available as an ebook. So as I mentioned, we're looking at material from the DC history course, but if you don't have a packet or aren't in the course, there's still plenty for you to take away from this activity. It's an assignment. There are 3 images and a text. We're just going to focus on 3 images, particularly 1. So the first goal is to identify some bibliographical facts about the images, like the origin, the date, then make some observations, and then come to a conclusion. Once that's done for the images and, of course, the text, students are asked to respond with an image of their own that summarizes how DC would look and feel in the period just after the Civil War. Demonstrate their knowledge and understand some of the principles of visual literacy. So what we're going to do is we're going to leap into the picture. We're going to look at it, ask some questions. What do we see? Who's in the picture? What's going on? What do you think is happening? Then we're going to evaluate, take a step back. What's the message here? What's the information that the true creator is trying to share with his audience, both then and now? analyze. So how does this fit into the overall information we are developing about this particular historical period? And then the next step for students, really, but you can participate on your own, is to produce. What can we say about the information that we've taken in and demonstrate that knowledge to our own audience? In this case, students are asked to create their own image. So what we have is a fantastic image here. One of my favorite kinds, political cartoon. That is important whenever you're doing anything to like this around visual literacy, is to identify exactly what you're looking at. Because some of the strategies we use here, you wouldn't necessarily use for an object of fine art. We may not use that for an advertisement, but it can be modified and retrofitted to whatever you're looking at. So image 1, Georgetown election political cartoon. And then you can also use a caption at the bottom. It's also in the image, the Georgetown election, the Negro at the ballot box, 1867. And that's a piece of information we actually need to know to complete the graphic organizer that goes with this assignment, the year it was created, and that is 1867. So if you're following along, please feel free to jot that down. So political cartoons are really information dense, and they're some of my favorite tools to use to understand a historical era. So with that, let's take a closer look, the first step, at this picture. So some questions we can start with. Well, what are we looking at? Where are we? Where is it? What or who is in the picture? What is happening? And what is the possible meaning behind this image? Now, sometimes it helps to look at this from corner to corner or from quadrant to quadrant. If you fold it into 4, we're going to take that step next. Ask yourself to look at the composition as a whole. What's in the foreground or closer to you, the viewer? What's in the background or further away? What's the composition? Who is where in relation to each other on the image? But if you break the image into 4, you can try to catch as much detail as possible. If you look in the first section, you'll see a fairly angry-looking man clutching a roll of paper to his chest. If you look closely at the roll, you'll see it reads, Suffrage Veto, District of Columbia, and hanging off of it, My Policy. In the man's pocket, more papers reading, My Veto. If you look even closer, you might recognize the man, Andrew Jackson, the president that followed Lincoln and oversaw Reconstruction. If you look just to the right of that depiction of who we'll assume to be Johnson, there's another angry-looking man. This man is wearing a hat that reads ex-CSA, or Confederate States of America. You might want to ask yourself, well, why is this man standing this way? And how is he dressed in comparison with Johnson? Now, in the second section of the larger picture, we see what the 2 men are looking at, 2 other men, one of whom is black. The black man is casting a ballot in front of the other 2 watchful figures. Are there any other black people in this picture? Where are most of the figures directing their attention? Are the expressions or dress in the second section different from those in the first? Now, the third section is a little less information dense than the first 2, but you can still see little details, like Johnson's inward turned toes or the ex-CSA man's baggy pants. But you can also see the creator's signature, which is a relevant piece of information for us. If you look there in the bottom left-hand corner, can you see it? T.H. Nast, or that stands for Thomas Nast. Go over to the 4th section, where we can see exactly who the candidates are. You can read it, just there on the right. The Republican mayor, Welch, and the white man's ticket for mayor, Addison. If you look, the voter is publicly casting his ballot for the Republican candidate. So with all that information, what can we reasonably claim Thomas Nast is telling the audience, us, about the Georgetown election in 1867? Now, this part does require a little bit of background knowledge. For instance, Jackson is visibly upset by the black man voting. He's holding papers reading My Vote and Suffrage Veto, suffrage meaning the right to vote in elections. And you can see tucked in his pocket, Jackson has some pocket vetoes as well. Johnson and the ex-CSA soldier are visibly close together. And the Black citizen is casting his vote for the Republican candidate. We should mention here that Johnson was a Democrat and Lincoln the Republican. There's a lot of shift in the party system at that time. So let's analyze. And to do that, we should also bring in that overarching question. Did Washington, D.C. need to be reconstructed after the Civil War? So to analyze, we want to think about how does this image fit into the larger historical era? So in 1867, we know that this image was published about 2 years after the end of the Civil War. Seems clear that Nast wants the audience to see how Johnson's policy undermined the expansion of suffrage and how, moreover, Black male voters continued to exercise their vote in spite of this. We can also visualize the continued influence of the Confederate states during Reconstruction and sort of imagine the Black voters' fluctuating access to the ballot. And some of these points that we've covered already, I've highlighted here to answer some of the supporting questions we have for question 3 on day 7. Examining is a great way to spur further inquiry. So what can we say about the information that we've taken in? As you go forward, students will be asked to create their own image in response to all of the images that are included with this section. One of the things you can do is consider flipping the perspective of the story. How can you alter the people and the characters that you already see in this image? What would it look like to move forward or backward in time to capture the progression of the right to vote? What if you added or removed some elements from the image as it is now? And remember, just as a rule of thumb, when you want to persuade someone, keep in mind appeals to the logic, to emotion, and to reason. While we've gathered information here, there are so many other ways we can build off what we've gathered, use these terms to further learning. What else did Nast have to say about politics? Was Addison real mayor of DC? What else did Johnson do with the CSA and those pocket vetoes? Looking, examining, analyzing, these are all great launching pads for inquiry. There are so many high-quality resources available to launch more exploration. DigDC is a useful collection of digital resources all about DC history that's made available by DC Public Library. There are photos, maps, audio, all elements we've talked about today that offer a new perspective on DC history. So explore the city right around you. You can also search by image. I'd invite you to try 10i if you want to conduct an easy reverse image search. All you have to do is copy and paste to find the origin of an image. So if you're a visual learner who enjoys using images to launch your research projects, I highly suggest you check that out. I'd also like to ask you to test your visual literacy knowledge by visiting bit.ly/DCPSvisual. There's so much to learn by thinking and questioning what we see each day. Easy to take that ability for granted. It seems so common, but in a complex world, questioning and considering what's in front of us couldn't be more important.
Of course, it would not be Lessons at the Library without a book recommendation. So today I'm going to talk about Het by Akwaeke Emezi. It's a story of a young girl, Jan, and her determination to find the truth about the society that she lives in. Of course, there's value and danger in uncovering information, but understanding the world around you is an empowering thing. So remember to take a closer look at the images we see every day and think critically about the value of the information we're collecting. Information is powerful when used with integrity, and I hope each of you feels like the information you get is of use to you. Don't forget to take care of yourselves and each other.
Hello, my name is Christopher Stewart, and I am the Library Media Specialist at Columbia Heights Education Campus, Bell High School. And I wanted to talk to you all about financial literacy. Very important subject that we're going to dive into. And as we experience COVID-19, this couldn't be a more timely discussion to have and lesson to have. So I look forward to talking to you about it. I'm going to actually share my screen and we are going to get into the PowerPoint. And we are actually going to go right to the beginning of the PowerPoint. So financial literacy, awakening the world's wealth and empathy leaders, that is you. So again, my name is Christopher Stewart, Columbia Heights Education Campus, Bell High School Library. And what exactly is financial literacy? So when we think about financial literacy, we want to look at the definition that Investopedia gives us, which is financial literacy is the ability to understand and effectively apply various financial skills, including personal finance management. That also includes budgeting and investments, and which includes the NASDAQ and S&P 500, as well as mutual funds and CDs, certificates of deposits. We want to make sure that we are becoming self-sufficient as to achieve financial stability. And this does not have to wait until you are an adult. This can actually happen at a very, very young age, and we're going to talk about that. So who is financial literacy for? It's for legacy. So this is myself as well as my beautiful and intelligent wife and my three superhero children, Sanaya, Nadia, and Christopher II. And so when we think about financial literacy, we want to make sure that we're thinking about ourselves as well as our families, our immediate families, also our extended families, making sure that we are creating generational wealth to have longevity as far as financial literacy and understanding budgets and understanding the stock market. When we think about financial literacy, it's also for our community. We cannot be self sufficient, nor can we have this knowledge without making sure that our neighbors have this knowledge. And that's not only the individuals who are right next to you, but that's also those community members who are in neighboring states and also neighboring countries. Very, very important that we're teaching this community based financial literacy to everyone. And that's get to everyone because when we think about our homeless brothers and sisters, let's make sure that we are giving knowledge to them, but also that we are giving resources to them because we are kindred, we are connected. So making sure that we teach and set goals and save for ourselves, but also save to make sure that we're giving to our neighbors who are in need. So you have to decide how you're going to show up in life. I like to see great textbooks, great opportunities for kids to really understand stock market investing. That's from Melody Hobson. She's the president and co-CEO of Arrow Investments, a company that she has been at for decades. And she has made it her mission to invest in the next generation. So Arrow Investments thought it was so important to go into elementary schools and actually give them knowledge pertaining to the stock market. They also wanted to make sure that they had knowledge of investing, so they gave them money to actually invest, real money to invest. So if we were able to do something like this, and teens, if you're able to actually do this with as little as 10, 15, $20, very important so you can see how these stocks and mutual funds are working. So when we think about financial literacy, we would be remiss if we didn't discuss the U.S. racial wealth inequality. It's rampant in the U.S., and according to Prosperity Now and the Institute for Policy Studies, also along with Forbes and Statista, they predict that in 2024, white households will have roughly 122,000 for their median household wealth, while blacks will have 1,233 and Latinos 1,633. We understand that the median household wealth denotes the midpoint of frequency of wealth distribution. Financial literacy for teens. So let's actually look at financial literacy, this video that talks about financial literacy for high school students and teens.
Financial literacy could possibly be the most beneficial subject taught to a high school student. In a survey conducted by the National Financial Educators Council, young adults aged 18 to 24 were asked what high school level course would benefit your life the most. More than 50% answered money management over the forefront subjects. Investopedia.com defines financial literacy as the education and understanding of various financial areas, the ability to manage personal finance matters in an efficient manner, the knowledge of making appropriate decisions about personal finance. Americans have endured a number of financial crises and recessions over the past years. Some of the simplest mistakes can cause a person to have a lifetime of financial problems. Some critics say a lack of education that teens and college students receive about personal finance is a major factor behind the debt levels that are piling up among this age group. Many college professors and credit counselors say they're surprised at how little many young people understand about the terms of loans and credit card agreements and repercussions of piling up so much debt. Going to college can be very expensive for the majority of us. Getting a loan is the only option most students have to pay for their education. If a person isn't knowledgeable about what loans to choose, it can be detrimental to their debt total. The two loans mainly used for college is subsidized and a government unsubsidized loan. One accrues interest as soon as the loan is approved. The government pays the interest on the other until the person either graduates or decides to leave school. Wow. Saving for retirement is becoming obsolete, along with the diminishing Social Security account. The Social Security Board of Trustees reported that by 2033, its trust fund may be depleted, meaning it will most likely be used as safety for basic survival. Walter Updegrave, editor of Real Deal Retirement, highlights that almost half of workers had saved less than 50 grand for retirement, and 15% had not saved a penny. What does this mean for that maybe 65%? The reality of these statistics is that in their senior years, they will most likely struggle financially or depend solely on family member support. With the increase in online shopping, for many young shoppers, using cash is rare, allowing young people to become more prone to using credit cards for expenses, making it easier for them to accumulate debt at a faster rate. Majority of these consumers have very little understanding of how credit works and the potential effect wrong decisions can have on their financial well-being for many years. How do we plan to correct these problems and prevent them from reoccurring? Young adults must be taught to be more frugal, buy more needs and less wants, and to use cash as much as possible. Learn to spend less and become educated about credit cards in general. Payout rates and percentages. Credit is a lot of responsibility for an 18-year-old to have. According to the 2016 survey of the states, currently in the U.S., there are only 17 states that require a high school course in personal finance. A study for Discover found noticeable results. High school seniors who had taken a personal finance course compared to those who hadn't were more likely to save money, 93% compared to 84%. Have a budget, 60% compared to 40%. And invest, 32% compared to 17%. If young adults are to become financial literate, they must learn to analyze and compare the costs and benefits of goods and services, develop skills to set goals, and use budgeting as a tool to manage money. Learn the benefits of saving money, investing, and making smart financial decisions. Learn how to use bank services to achieve a long-term financial plan. Understand loan interest, credit rating, and how debt can impact life goals.
Okay, so as we actually look at that video and we also think about racial inequality in the previous slide, I want us to think also about how, for years, centuries, free labor as well as reduced wages, which are still currently in our present going on. I think that we have to think about those things when we talk about financial literacy and wealth creation. It's important to know that slavery had a impact and that we're still feeling at this current time for African Americans. And when we think of wages that many immigrants are subjected to being much lower, we also have to take that into consideration when we think about financial literacy. Um, and so we can prevent that right now by doing some things that are systemic and changing those things, changing those institutions as to make sure that we are giving equality, equitable services and financial literacy to everyone, regardless of race or ethnicity or representation. So this is from Ivory Johnson, who was the founder of the Lancey Wealth Management in Washington, D.C. When I came home from college, I told my dad I wanted to buy a car. He asked me, what kind of car? And I told him I wanted a Jeep. He then asked if I would have nice speakers, and I said, absolutely. He paused and said, make sure you have a shower inside, because if I was dumb enough to buy a car when we lived in Manhattan, I would have to move out immediately. He told me to buy an apartment in the neighborhood. A $20,000 apartment in the Lower East Side is now worth $500,000, half a million, which I'll use for 1031 exchange to buy $1 million worth of rental property in DC where I now live. So having financial literacy means that you are having knowledge and access to knowledge, financial knowledge, so you can create this type of wealth that can definitely go for generations. So I am actually announcing something that I want every single one of you students to write for. April is National Financial Literacy Month, and that's why I thought it was so important to make sure that I presented on a topic that is very dear to my heart, but also a topic that too many students as well as adults don't hear enough of. So the Bell Library is sponsoring the first annual financial literacy contest for youth between the ages of 8 to 19 years old. Either write an email, a 250-word essay, or create an email, an art project, PDF only, about the importance of saving and giving to others. The deadline for entry is Tuesday, May 5th, 2020, 5 p.m. 10 winners will receive a $50 gift card. So I'm looking forward to seeing these essays and these art projects. And make sure that you are being creative when you're doing your submission. And my email is right down there, christopher.stewart2@k12.dc.gov. And also check out the Columbia Heights Education Campus Bell High School Library website, which is located right at the bottom here. And National Financial Literacy Month. I want you to check out that tab. We have an amazing amount of resources, but also resources pertaining to COVID-19, virtual learning tools, exceptional student resources, as well as scholarships for our seniors and juniors, and even our freshmen and sophomores. So we want to make sure that we are changing the narrative. In changing this narrative, I want you to think about how you can continue to read, how you can continue to access information and knowledge, and for additional resources, I want you to go to the website, bellhighlibrary.wixsite.com/check. But I also want you to check out WTUlocal6.net. And I'm actually going to stop sharing now and go back to seeing you, or you seeing me rather. There we are. So I also want to make sure that I recommend a book. One of the books that I'm recommending is Nickel and Dimed. So Nickel and Dimed is actually a book by Barbara Aaron Rich, and this book really is very interesting. It discusses this reporter who is also actually goes undercover as a waitress and lives on a very reduced salary, and talks about her experience. So it's important when we talk about financial literacy that we are also talking about the experiences of others and what they may go through on a regular basis. Another book that has nothing to do with financial literacy, but I actually absolutely love, is based on a true story by G. Mary, and it's called Yummy. So definitely make sure you check that out. And it has been a pleasure. Definitely continue to stay strong. Peace and love and librarianship from Mr. Stewart. Thank you.